Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This video we're going to talk about managing hallways. Hallways are something that most buildings and homes have. Not all homes, not all buildings, but hallways are pretty common. In fact, so common that there's an average width on a hallway depending on if it's residential, municipal, it's a hospital, commercial, so on and so forth. And those are easily to find online. They vary a little bit from state to state based on lineage of building techniques, the legacy of how homes were built, such as a ranch house from California versus a colonial like you see on the northeast coast. But it is a geometric shape that we have to deal with when we're talking about the use of a firearm inside of a home or a building. Now, if you remember from the video on room entry and searches, we talked about linear blocks, or so-called fatal funnels. The hallway is generally considered a very long linear block. It's a linear passageway. So you have to navigate it in a way that's never going to be best case scenario, but there are some techniques that you can use to be far more advantageous than others. Hallways are going to present in a number of ways with a number of width, but the average home hallway is going to be probably slightly wider than this. Homes, generally the doors leading off of hallways open into the rooms versus out, just based on the size, whereas in a school or municipal building or a hospital, the doors can open out. Usually if the doors open out because of fire code or something like that, the hallways are more liberal, as in larger, which gives you more room to play with, but it also gives you more things to worry about as far as where you have to keep your eyes at any given time. So we're just going to talk about hallway techniques that can be applied to small and large hallways. Just like the room entry and searches video, this video is about individual techniques. This video is mainly focused at home defense or single officer tactics. The reason being, if I have a team, I have options available to me that I don't have when I'm by myself. Now, the primary thing to think about is what's driving you to enter into or leave a hallway. There has to be something driving you. In a home defense situation, be it 2 in the morning or 10:30 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, is going to change where you are in the home and how you may deal with the situation. The situation overall is if you're the only one in the home and you're in a bedroom or you're in the kitchen or you're in the bathroom, you know where the threat isn't. So it might not behoove you to go out and search for them. However, if you're at the bedroom at the end of the hall and you have small children or your wife or someone else is somewhere else in the house, then you kind of have to go look for them if you can't bring them to you. Especially in the cliche bump in the middle of the night scenario, which is entirely possible, but it's not the only time a home invasion can happen. You may not be able to wake your child, or maybe your child's too small, so you have to leave the room. So that's what we're building on. We'll be using these search techniques in the event that we have to leave wherever we are and search out and secure one of our loved ones to bring them back to an area that we know is safe. So what I'm standing in right now is a hallway origin, meaning the hallway dumps into a room. It doesn't continue past it. This is where the hallway ends. So as you can see, I got my 2 hard walls right here. Now, this could be a bedroom, it could be a kitchen, it could be any number of rooms. But the reason we focus on it is because this is the beginning of a so-called fatal funnel, and our options are kind of limited on how we enter the hallway based on what the room configuration is. As you can see, I got a wall to either side, so I'm going to be able to pie around and get a look at the whole hallway. Now, say this was a long wall that was the edge of the home, or the edge of another room, and the only place I could work with was an empty space or an angle over here. That would limit my ability to fully utilize the pieing technique, because by the time I got over here, I'd be right up against the wall and I'd be exposed to the hallway anyway. So when I think about entering into hallways from rooms like this, a hallway termination or a hallway origin, I'm just going to get into the hallway as soon as I can, as soon as I possibly can, to avoid even dealing with this situation. If I have the luxury, like in your home, if you know the hallway ends at your bedroom and you have room on either side of the door to work with, then you can treat this as the entry into a room. It's just going to be a long room. You're going to pie the entire room and you're going to move into it. But if you find yourself with an unfamiliar hallway, such as a no-read hallway, you remember from that video we talked about terminology, read versus no-read. Read means I know the hallway. I've been there before. I have history with it. No-read means it's somewhere I've never been before, or maybe things have changed since the last time I was there. But if you know the floor plan, it's definitely going to change the way you can deal with the situation versus if you don't know the floor plan at all. So if I can pie it, I'm going to pie it. If there's something that's going to prevent me from pieing it, I'm going to see whatever angles I can, and then I'm going to immediately make entry into the hallway. Unlike a traditional pie, I'm looking down a linear block. So as soon as I can see the wall, down the wall, I'm done. I don't have to work the entire angle if I don't want to. And it may not benefit you to do so anyway. all I'm going to do is utilize whatever room I can, and I'm going to start to work that angle. I'm going to keep off my sight so I don't avoid seeing things that are on the ground or what have you. And as soon as I can see this entire wall as it runs all the way down, I'm just going to go ahead and start working back to see the other wall. Once I've seen the center of the hallway is clear, at this point I can move into it if that's my decision to make. If I'm going to hard pin here, that's fine. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to minimize my exposure, maybe I'm going to call out to my loved ones or whatever I'm going to do. If I'm running light, if it's a low light situation, that's a totally different topic, but at this point I can commit to the hallway, and it really didn't take me, I didn't have to invest nearly the same amount of time as you would pine into a center fed or a corner fed room, because quite frankly, there's not much to see in this hallway. Now, if down the hall I have a door on the left or a door on the right and the door is open, I can attempt to start pieing that room from back here. This is that hard wall I was talking about. Say this wall continues into the room, the door's here, and this is my only corner. Say it's a corner fed room, the hallway dumps into a corner fed room. My ability to pie this is limited in the fact that I can't go over to the other side, but as we just talked about, the actual pie itself is very limited. As soon as I can see run down both walls, I can commit to my entry or commit to whatever my decision is going to be. I've got the data as it stands. In this situation, I'm going to treat it basically the same way. I'm going to try to get as far off of it as I can. Okay, got that far angle, now I can come out, got it, and now I can commit to the hallway entry. It's less work, but it can be more dangerous, especially considering the situation where, what if I have to navigate the doorway at the same time? If I've got to open a door and then do this at the same time, it's going to change how I handle things. And then, of course, is it a low light situation? Is it a daylight situation? What other factors do I have to deal with? Another consideration to think about is hallway to hallway. What if by the nature of the room you're leaving, maybe it's a hallway and there's a door down the hall? That's more common in commercial municipal hospitals, but it's still just as common in some home styles where you have a short hallway, such as that of a bedroom. Maybe it's a load-bearing wall or something like that, and it leads into another hallway. So as soon as I open the door, I'm already in the so-called fatal funnel. Now, depending on which way the door opens, it's going to determine what I'm able to do. But in a situation like that, I'm going to open that door probably as quickly as I can, unless the door is allowing me to, is revealing the hallway to me. If it opens in the other direction, I'm just going to have to deal with it. My main purpose, though, is to open that door as quickly as I can, as fast as I'm able to see things, and then go ahead and commit to the entry, and then slow it down once I have to start dealing with open or closed doors down the hall. So now I'm in the hallway. We start talking about working the doors off of the hallway. Simplest situation is going to be no doors. It's just a hallway into another room, which is very uncommon. There's going to be one or two doors, and the length of the hallway is going to add to the number of doors just based on what a hallway's purpose is. So let's say easiest solution is I've got a far end wall, basically where the camera is, and then I've got this one door here off to my left. I would treat this just like I would a room entry, but I constantly have to be aware of that other end of the hallway. Now, if that door is open, this door is closed, it does complicate things a little bit because my attention is going to have to be split between this door and that door. Now, if I've got some kind of information that tells me where the threat is most likely to be, that's one thing. But if this is my daughter's room or my son's room, or this is the room where my wife's watching TV or what have you, my attention is going to be here because I know that that's my ultimate destination. So as I pie this doorway, I have to be able to maintain an idea or an attention on this far room. Now, if this is the only room in the hallway and that's just a dead end, which would be a really weird house, but whatever, then maybe that's an exterior door or something like that. But if that's a dead end, then that's going to dictate how much attention I have to split between these two places. So just thinking logically, if this is a center-fed room, like it's based on the size of this hallway, it's telling me this is most likely going to be a center-fed room, I know that with that door is going to be there. Now, if this was a corner-fed room, saying this door was down by where the camera's sitting right now, then maybe that is a dead end of the hallway. And maybe this is the exterior of the house, which again would be a very weirdly constructed house. Ideally, hallways are in the middle of homes and they split off into different rooms just based on design. So I'm going to pie this in the same way that I would pie the entry on a door, because it is a doorway. If I have to navigate and work the door handle, that's one thing. But as I move around, I'm going to stay off this wall. The reason I'm not going to brush up with this wall actually has nothing to do with the half-truth that bullets follow walls. Bullets do follow walls. Bullets follow walls made out of brick and cinder block and concrete and hard, solid cover objects. I challenge you to duplicate a bullet follow the wall scenario on your own with drywall or any kind of interior building material. It's very unlikely to happen. The only time I've seen a bullet follow a wall in a non-hard object is really, really thick particle board, and that was probably a freak occurrence because we never were able to replicate it. But we can replicate it all the time off of brick, concrete, cinder block, things like that. So drywall, not really concerned. I'm staying off this wall so I don't generate noise. If I'm being sneaky, or we call surreptitious movement or deliberate search movement, we don't want the threat to know where we necessarily are while we look for them. I don't want to rub up on this wall and make noise because it's going to be really quiet, most likely. But I'm going to pie this just like I would any other door. I'm going to work the angles as I can see the room. The only time my attention is going to change is when I start to get over here and I'm going to have to give my backup to this unknown entry or this unknown doorway. My advice to you, since you're likely to be doing this on your own, is you still need to get the data in this room. Is once you get to a certain point where you're about to have to give up to your back, just go ahead and commit to the rest of your pie and then make a decision on what you're going to do. You've already gotten here, you might as well just go ahead and go right in without a pause. Go into the room, do what you need to do in the room, and hopefully that's where the situation ends. But if for some reason you have to come back out into the hallway, you're going to treat entry back into the hallway the exact same way. You're going to pie from the outside, because once you give up this real estate, it's no longer clear. And this goes back to why I call the individual technique searching versus clearing. I can go in here, scoop up my kid, and I'm coming out of the room, and maybe the whole reason any of this is happening, the burglar or the home invasion or whatever, maybe he comes out of that door and starts to move down this hallway. So if I just pop right back out this door, I'm unprepared for what's about to happen, and I'm going to have to process and deal with it. If I pie the hallway from inside this room as much as the room will allow me, then I'm going to get that data ahead of time, and maybe I can fight or issue verbal commands from in here versus coming right out here and running right into the guy. Same thing comes from the direction of travel I came from. Now, if this is the dead end, there's a bedroom back here, it's unlikely that he's in that direction, the threat's in that direction. It's still possible. Maybe he passed by while I was in the room. These are things we can't control when we work by ourselves. Now we start to add a little more difficulty, but we also add more realism. Hallways generally feed two sides of a building as opposed to just feeding one. And speaking residentially, commercial or municipal or what have you, sometimes hallways run a ring and they all feed into the center, and that would actually be advantageous. Or you have a hallway, rooms, and another hallway, center spine hallway, which complicates things. But just residentially speaking, if you do have a hallway, it's more likely going to be short, and it's going to feed two sides of the house, potentially three, depending on how big the house is, what have you. But now we have basically a T-intersection. I've got a door on either side of the hallway that I have to deal with. Now, if both doors are open, I've got to deal with both of them at the same time, as contemporaneously as possible. I'm going to stay in the center of the hallway, which maximizes my view, my geometry, into either room at the same time. If both doors are open, that's what I have to do. If this door, say this side of the hallway, this door is closed, open takes priority over closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maximize my viewpoint into this room by staying on this side of the hallway. Now say this door is closed and that door is open, I'm going to do exactly the opposite. If both doors are open, I'm going to treat this like a threshold evaluation. I did a video on this ages ago, but we're going to talk about it again. A threshold evaluation is basically I'm going to work forward slowly, looking into both sides of the room as I go, revealing the room to me as much as I'm able to see in either room. I'm going to split my attention back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, until I get to a point to where I would be revealed to parts of the room that I haven't been able to see from back here. Because my pie starts here. As soon as I can start getting angles in that room, that's what I'm going to do. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Once I get to this point, once I pass this point right here, once I pass this threshold, I am revealing myself to parts of the room that I haven't been able to see, I don't have history with. I've got to commit to one or the other. How do I do that? Well, another concern, again, is the camera's perspective. What if that is a third doorway? What if that doorway's been open the entire time? If it's a closed door, I'm going to go ahead and take the risk. If it's an open door, I've got to be able to think about three different directions at all times. Which direction do I go? Do I just commit to an entry? I can. If I have history with the room, if it's a read room, I know the furniture layout, I know the size. Maybe this is a short corner, this is a short corner, this is the end of the house. I've seen, 70% of both of these rooms. I can commit to an entry into one of them, because the alternative is I've got to cross, and there's no way upon crossing that I can pay attention to both sides at the same time. The third option is to hard pin the wall and just come in, okay, that one's good. Now I can come over here, hard pin, okay, and then I can commit to my entry. That's an option as well. What is the danger to that method? The danger to that method is I'm taking in a lot of data at one time, and I am momentarily giving up technically my back to this room, but I'm doing it from here. This is a method that has become popular in law enforcement for single officer searches. I have modified it a little bit based on the environment that I'm in, as you should too, because techniques need to fit the environment. You cannot make the environment fit the technique. So I've got to commit to one or the other. Well, just based on data, let's say this is a laundry room, that's a bedroom. That may change which room takes priority as well. Now, if this door is closed, I can go ahead and kind of finish my pie as much as I'm able to until I give up this direction, and then I can go ahead and make my entry. Coming back out, again, we treat it exactly the same way as we do a room entry. We've got to pie as much as we can from inside that room into the hallway, and the cool thing is, if I still haven't been in this room and I commit to entry into this room, I can pie this room while I pie this hallway, if that makes any sense. Any visible angle is going to help me. And I may, upon coming out, literally cross straight over and make my entry into this other room. I had somebody ask me once, well, why, if this door is open, can I close it? I mean, you can, but again, if there's somebody in that room and they're not aware of your presence, you've just made them very aware of your presence, and you're going to create the situation before it needs to take place. So yeah, that's an option. It's kind of a weird option. But it is something that maybe you think about depending on what that room is, how big that room is, the nature of that room, what have you. Another thing that comes up in situations like this, well, what about turning on lights? If it's a low light situation, which again, not the only time these techniques can be used because home invasions happen during the day as well as at night, can you turn on lights as you go through the house? Yeah, you can. The problem I have with that is I'm giving data up that I don't need to give up. What I mean by that is if I have a high quality weapon light, I'm pushing all those lumens. I've got control over the situation. I control the data. If I don't see a light, that means my bad guy, if there is one, probably doesn't have one. So if my bad guy doesn't have a light, am I at an advantage? I'd say yes. So then I'm taking away that advantage by turning on all these lights as I go through the house, and I'm giving him data he didn't have before. So it's just something to think about. There is a risk versus reward there, but my personal feeling is the light's off, leave it off. If you don't have a weapon light, then smack yourself and turn on the lights as you go through the house, because that's what you have to do. I can't stress enough, you have to have positive identification before you start shooting, obviously. And I know that's a very easy thing to say, and people are going to roll their eyes at that comment, but accidents happen. And when I say accidents, I mean negligence happens, because not having a weapon light, or at the very least a handheld light, is a negligent decision, especially when we think about home defense. So when it comes to turn on the lights, it is a personal decision. I don't like it, because then I'm putting me on equal footing with the threat, and I do not agree with that. If I have a weapon light, I control the light, and I like controlling the light. So back to this, we're going to treat it like a T intersection. Actually, this would be a four-way intersection, because from the camera's perspective, we have another room. Now, if, say, this is the end right here, say like from here to here is the very end of the hallway, changes things a little bit. I only have two doors to work with. I only have two doors to worry about. And I would know if this was the very end of the building, I could see that these are empty corners. So my pie would basically dictate what I can't see, because I know unless he's in the far corner of either room, he's not right there by the door. Finally, as far as navigating to the doors off hallways, we have offset doors. I got a short entry here, another entry here. Again, based on your knowledge of the floor plan of the home, maybe the camera's perspective is another door, maybe that door leads outside under another bedroom, or maybe that's the end of the building. This room, because the door is further down the hallway, is most likely to be center fed. This one's more likely to be kind of a corner fed or modified corner fed, a short corner fed, off center corner fed, whatever you want to call it. Since this door is closer, it's going to become my priority, unless it's closed. Now, I don't want to bypass unknowns, which means if this door is closed, I don't want to commit to this door, pie it, make my entry, do all that. But if this door is closed, it lets me see more of this room until I can get to a point where I'm comfortable not necessarily giving my backup to it, but taking all of my attention away from it briefly to make entry into this room. Again, it's going to be an issue of preference and an order of importance. If this is a bedroom and that's a laundry room, this may be where I need to go. Now, if this is where I need to go, because say my son or my daughter's in there, again, I can simply, maybe call out to them if I feel that's worth the risk. Like, hey, is there anyone in your room? That's an option. This situation is complicated, just like we talked about the T-intersection, because I may have to give my backup to an unknown, which is something I don't want to do. When we search by ourselves, that's a risk we have to assume. There's no avoiding that risk. Absolutely no avoiding the risk, because trying to avoid the risk puts yourself at even more danger, because you may not gather as much information as you can before you make entry into a situation. So if both of these doors are open, I'm going to try to work this room the same time I work that one. So it's kind of like a modified threshold evaluation. As I come down the hallway, I'm going to come over here, see as much of that room as I can. I'm going to come over here and start to pie that one, and then I'm just going to keep making this decision. It's going to be a long process based on how much speed and how much time I have to move, but if I'm moving at a direct to threat speed, like I know the threats in this room, known will take priority over unknown, and I will commit to this entry because that's where my threat, I know my threat is in there. Could there be a threat in this room? In that situation, maybe. But I know there's one in this room, and I have to take, known has to take priority, because this could be, as far as I'm concerned, fantasy, because I know there's a threat in there. But in the event that I'm still just doing a search, still in search mode, I'm just going to keep working that so I can see as much of each room as possible. Now, I'm starting to pie this door and revealing myself more so to this room than this one. Once I get to a certain point, right now I'm only exposed to data I already have. Data I already have, data I already have, data I already have. Once I get to right here, once I get to this threshold, I'll have to give myself my backup to data I haven't seen yet. I don't know what's beyond that corner because I haven't been able to see it. And I can't pie over here because in order to do that, I have to step inside this room. Complicated really, really fast. So once I reach this point, I've got to either commit to this room or commit to this room. Which room's more important? Like I said, if this is the laundry room and that's the bedroom, or this is a storage room and that's the bedroom, or this is a walk-in hall closet and that's the bedroom to me is going to take priority. Just because that's where people are more likely to be. But I can't forget about this room. So it really comes down to a personal decision. If you've got any reason to think your threat's in this direction, you've got to commit to this room. If you've got reason to think your threat's in the bedroom, commit to the bedroom. You've got to pick one. And again, from the camera's perspective, if that's a third room, all the time I'm doing this, I have to pay attention to that room right there. It sounds complicated, and it is if you don't practice it. But the more you practice this, the more realistic you make your practice in your own home, the better off you're going to be doing this. And of course, you can work all of these angles. Anytime you go to a doctor's office or any place like that, work the angles. Don't puppet gun, because we've talked about that. People tend to get a little weird when you start puppet gunning around a doctor's office. Really weird. But we have to be prepared to deal with these situations. And the fact that this seems very complicated is no excuse for not at least practicing it. Now there's that line of, well, you know, if you just do that stuff, that's just taking it to a level too far, or it's paranoid. I don't know where paranoia begins. At what level are you willing to stop training? And that really becomes the question. At what level are you willing to stop practicing because you feel like you're practicing something that seems silly or seems paranoid? There's no such thing as paranoid if you're prepared, and the only way to be prepared is to train and practice. So, got to commit to one, got to make a decision. I can't tell you what the right decision is because I don't know what your rooms are. So I'm not going to tell you that the short door always takes priority or the long door always takes priority, because in this direction, short door, long door. Now if I'm on the other side, this would be the short door, this would be the long door. So you see how the direction of travel really plays into that as well? So I'm not going to be one of those guys that says, well, the short door always takes priority, the long door always takes priority. You need to base your decision on your floor plan, your situation, what's driving you to even be in this situation. So if your own personal practice, if this is always the laundry room and this is always the bedroom, help that dictate what you do, but be entirely prepared for there to be some kind of data telling you the threat's more likely to be in here, or he could be in either room. Once I commit to my entry, say I get to here and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead, pie around, go ahead and make my entry. Upon coming out, I'm going to pie my way out, and then I'm going to start working this doorway. The vice versa would be true. The advantage to entering into this room would be, as I pie this room, I can see into that room, so on and so forth. Always take advantage of any angle that's given to you to get data on a room or an environment. Lastly, and probably most important, if you do engage a threat in a room, work in the hallway, same as room entries and searches, the room is the room. You engage the threat, don't suck in. Fight from the real estate you own. Say maybe you see somebody and there's no reason immediately to shoot them. Maybe they don't have a visible weapon, state law, duty to retreat, all that nonsense. If you're going to issue verbals, do it from out here, but be prepared for them to comply. The worst thing you want to do is tell a guy to come out with his hands up, that old cliche term, and then have him do it, and then you have no idea what to do next. Think through these things. Think about your plan for when they comply. Think about your plan for if they don't comply. And then also think about if you do engage the threat and put him down, what room is it, and do you need to go in there? If you smoke check the guy in the living room or the bedroom or the kitchen, and you know another family member is likely to be in that room, then you have to go in. Do so safely. Known threat is going to take priority over unknown threat. So if you have another doorway to work with, visually clear it as quickly as you can and commit to the room where the known threat is after you're sure that he is immediately down. Engage, follow through, make sure he's not immediately a threat, work that other doorway, and then immediately make entry. Put yourself in a position of advantage, put your back to a known safe area, secure the room, and then call 911, start working from there. Just like room entry and searches, this video's been pretty long. A lot of information to cover. The reason it's long is because there's a lot to talk about, but again, really just scratch the surface. And the best way to do this is just to do it. Find a home defense class, find a CQB class, whatever. Find a class that's going to allow you to tailor techniques to your own personal defense. Not only in home defense, but in the unlikely situation that you're present out in the public space when a shooting occurs and you're in a position and it makes sense to get involved. Hallways create more problems than just working rooms, but hallways tend to lead to rooms, which is why I've separated the two techniques. Because you're going to do certain things in hallways and have certain concerns in a hallway that you're not going to have in the space that you're going to get inside of a room. So build everything together. My personal feeling, the way I like to teach it is build the room, build your techniques inside the room, and then build the techniques for entering into that room from hallways and so on and so forth. But any linear block, any area that creates an artificial or a permanent hallway, think about moving between cars. It can be a hallway as well. The only advantage is you can see over the cars, but you can't see behind them. So you're going to treat that in a modified version in the same way. Take advantage of any angle that allows you to see where you want to see. It's weaponized geometry. That's all it is. Always work from the most advantageous angle the situation allows you to work from. I'm Aaron Cowell with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.